lunacy of the trans rights movement indoctrinating children into mutilating themselves, chopping their breasts off, castrating themselves, men turning themselves into women, women trying to turn themselves into men, going against nature, going against everything that's right and good. That's what we're concerned about. We're also concerned about the epidemic of the rape jihad. There has been a rape jihad in the United Kingdom that has lasted for 20 years. Pakistani and Bangladeshi Muslim men, to the extent of 80% of the convictions of those crimes, have been systematically raping our children since the 1980s and the 1990s, and it's still going on today. That's why we are concerned parents. We're concerned about the degradation of the United Kingdom. We're concerned about the United Kingdom history being slandered by the far left, being slandered by communists, and being slandered by Islamists. That is why we are concerned parents.
In this country right now, we have an epidemic of young children being taught they can be something they cannot, being taught that cutting their genitals off is normal. Children are being taught in this country that gender dysphoria needs a physical remedy, that a mental illness needs a physical remedy. These kids who can't consent to smoking, can't drink, can't consent to sex, are now being expected to consenting to having their genitals mutilated. It is absolutely abhorrent what is going on in this country. You would think Muslims would rise up against this, but funny enough, their prophet Muhammad was a cross-dresser. He was the first pretty much transgender man, a cross-dresser who dressed up in his 6-year-old wife's clothing, who raped his 9-year-old wife. This epidemic in this country needs to end, and it needs to end now.
We're concerned parents, not just because of the things that my friend has just said. We're concerned parents because the history of this great United Kingdom has been slandered by our enemies, enemies without and enemies within. And in this Speaker's Corner today, there are many enemies of the United Kingdom. Well, I have one thing to say. If you are an enemy of the United Kingdom, if you hate this country, you hate its culture, and you hate its history, you know where the exit doors are. Leave now. You're not welcome. We do not want you. Pack your bags and go. This is the greatest country that has existed in history. This country is the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. This country was the birthplace of Shakespeare and the King James Bible. This country exported goodness and kindness around the world, and all the thanks that we get from the enemies of this country is hatred, bigotry and anti-white hysteria. It's time for that to stop, and concerned parents are wanting to put that to a stop right here today at Speaker's Corner.
Hear, hear.
As my good friend just said.
Yeah.
As my good friend just said, we have a lot of enemies of the United Kingdom. And one thing I want to talk about, if you enter the country illegally on a dinghy, or if you overstay your visa, your tourist visa, you are a criminal by definition. You are a criminal and need to be deported and sent home. People, veterans, are sleeping rough on the street in this country. Veterans, people who died for this country so we can live free in one of the greatest countries in the world. And they are left to rot on the streets. They aren't given anything. But people who enter the country illegally, criminals, are given money every week, 5-star hotels with hot tubs, swimming pools. They are given food, roof over their heads, clothing, iPhones, you name it, they've got it. Our homeless veterans who died and fought for this country don't get anything from the government. We don't necessarily blame the people who are coming here. The people who, if we were given an offer of a life better somewhere else, we would take it too. We blame Rishi Sunak, Suella Braverman, the Home Office, the UK government, everyone involved in this atrocity, this invasion, and this anti-white hysteria. It needs to end, and it needs to end now.
Yeah, well said.
And as we think about our great British history and our great British heritage, we hear a lot about the slave trade, and we hear a lot about Britain's involvement in the slave trade, and that was reprehensible without a shadow of a doubt. But we must say this, that the country, the first country in the world to abolish slavery was the United Kingdom. This great United Kingdom that you all live in and we love. And it was the British military that spent 100 years patrolling the seas, sinking slave ships, rescuing slaves and freeing slaves. It cost many British, English, Scottish and Irish lives to set the slaves free. That story is not being told, and that story needs to be told. In the First World War, who was it stood against Kaiser Wilhelm and his proto-fascist movement? It was the British Isles, it was the British Empire. The treasuries of the British Empire were emptied to protect Western Europe and Western civilization from the proto-fascism of Kaiser Wilhelm. And then in 1939, when Adolf Hitler thought he had the run of Europe, Britain joined the struggle. Britain stood with the free people of the world. Britain stood against fascism. Antifa don't mention this. Antifa never mentioned that Winston Churchill was the greatest anti-fascist who ever lived. And my grandfather and your grandfathers stood against the Nazis. We fought the Nazis. We defeated the Nazis, and we left Nazism in the trash can of history. That's what Winston Churchill did. That's what our forefathers did, and they need a round of applause from the people here today.
Yeah!
As my good friend just mentioned, we the British ended the Nazi regime. What we also need to mention is that slavery was started by black people and it was ended by white people. It was ended by us here in Britain. We ended slavery. Something Antifa, the far left, don't mention. We fought. Millions of our men, the great men of Britain, died so that they could be free. We died so the Nazi regime would end and would fall. And we're opposed to the Nazi regime, just like we're opposed to the invasion that is happening here in the UK right now. And this is an invasion. You've got primarily Muslim men who don't follow the traditional values of the West, who come here with the intent to subvert and destroy our culture and to replace the Christian culture in the West with a violent Islamic one. We are concerned parents who are against that. We are against the transgender ideologies as well, which again are subverting the Christian ideals and values in the West.
In 1945, that great man that we've just mentioned talked about another menace. Winston Churchill defeated the Nazi menace in the 1940s. In 1945, he talked about another menace. He said there will be an iron curtain descending on Europe. That Iron Curtain was brought about by Joseph Stalin, the most vicious and ruthless dictator that ever lived. Joseph Stalin was responsible for the murder of 100 million people. Churchill, the West, the British, the Americans stood against communism for 50 years, and in 1989 that Berlin Wall came down. Why did it come down? Because of the British and the Americans standing against the menace of communism. Again, it was our fathers and our forefathers that stood in the British Army on the Rhine against the menace of communism for 50 years, and we defeated communism. Communism was defeated by Western values and by Western civilization. Western values and Western civilization are the best values and the best civilization in history. Islam is not a civilization. Communism is not a civilization. Only Western Judeo-Christianity is a civilization that is worth looking up to and worth being involved in. Turn away from everything else and become a citizen of Western civilization. Don't listen to the liars. Don't listen to the people that talk Western civilization down. It's what's given everybody here the freedom to do what I'm doing. We believe in freedom. We love freedom, and we will fight for freedom until the last drop of our blood.
Why do people, if Islam is so great, why do they run from the heavy Sharia regimes in those countries? Why do they then decide, instead of flying to Qatar, to Egypt, etc., why do they decide to fly to the Western countries in Europe? It is because in the Western countries we hold freedom and democracy as our highest and most utmost respected values. That is why you have got mass immigration coming directly from those countries. They are escaping those violent Sharia regimes where you are not allowed to be who you want, but you're not allowed to say what you want. And they fly to Great Britain, to the countries in the West where you are, where you're allowed to be free.
The United Kingdom, and we're going to close on this, the United Kingdom is the country that everybody wants to come to because it is free. You can be who you want, you can do what you want, and Speaker's Corner today proves that you can stay what you want. However, this is where the rubber hits the road. If you come to our country, respect our laws, respect our culture, respect our freedoms. I was talking to someone today who lived in an Islamic country for a period of time. That person respected that country and that culture. If you are Muslim and you come to this country, respect our laws, live by our laws, follow our laws, and you are welcome. If you break our laws, you disrespect our laws, you disrespect our country, leave, leave, leave. Follow concernedparentsuk.org.uk. Thank you very much.
I agree with you. Muhammad is a pedophile.
Afternoon, everybody. We're live at Speaker's Corner, London.
We have no problem with it.